The high-end outdoor shopping mall buzzed under the noon sun. Andrew Miller, the single father, stood near a coffee kiosk. His 8-year-old son, Lucas, sat on a tall stool, swinging his legs gently. Nearby, Emily Carter stood frozen, her face tight with panic. She glanced desperately at her watch, then looked toward a group of sharply dressed people approaching rapidly. Turning suddenly, Emily leaned toward Andrew, her voice low and frantic. "Can you pretend to be my date for a day?" Andrew froze, stunned. His system registered the massive social risk. Lucas looked up sharply at his father. Andrew answered her desperate plea with a single, short sentence. Andrew Miller was 41 years old. He was proudly a single dad. His life was meticulously calibrated. It was defined by predictability and control. His career choice reflected this philosophy entirely. He was an HVAC repair technician for commercial buildings. The job was clean, honest, and low drama. Andrew dealt with logic boards, pressure valves, and thermal dynamics. He fixed things that were broken. When the fix was complete, it stayed fixed. He valued this reliable simplicity above all else. He preferred the silent, logical truth of machinery over the chaos of human ambition. 5 years ago, his wife, Sarah, had passed away unexpectedly. Her loss had been a seismic shock. Andrew had been an engineering manager then, running high-pressure projects with aggressive deadlines. He realized that the pursuit of external success had nearly cost him the internal peace he shared with his family. He quit the high-level management job. He shed the three-piece suits. He traded his 6-figure salary for a quiet, reliable schedule. He focused all his energy on raising Lucas. He shielded his son and himself from unnecessary social complications and emotional risk. Andrew understood that stability was the greatest inheritance he could give his son. This Saturday was a sacred ritual. It was meant to be the perfect, low-key afternoon. They were at the mall to buy Lucas new school supplies, fresh notebooks, crisp pencils, and a specialized protractor for an ambitious science project. It was a mission, a quiet success. Andrew had planned nothing more stressful than debating the merits of blue versus black ink. He wanted peace. He wanted calm. He wanted routine. He was successful in his new career, not because he was ambitious, but because he was reliable. He was the living antithesis of the high-stakes, image-driven world he had consciously walked away from. Emily Carter, 34, lived in a world where image was oxygen. She worked in high-level public relations and communications for a global finance firm. Her career was a relentless, exhausting sprint. Her entire professional life was a meticulously curated performance. Every outfit, every accessory, every lunch was a calculated element of her personal brand. She projected flawless control. The one area she consistently failed to manage was her personal life, specifically her judgmental extended family. Her family was ambitious, wealthy, and relentlessly critical. They judged every aspect of her life against a rigid metric of external success. They constantly pressured her about her dating status. They demanded a perfect match. Today was a high-stakes, mandatory family lunch, a forced introduction to her supposed new perfect boyfriend. She had told them he was a rising star in venture capital, the ultimate status symbol. The reality was crushing. The actual boyfriend, a charming but unreliable man named Julian, had bailed an hour ago via a pathetic, cowardly text message blaming a sudden business flight. Emily was stranded. She was cornered. Her family was due to arrive any second. She had promised a fiancé-worthy candidate. She felt the familiar, crushing weight of public failure descending. This wasn't just about embarrassment. It was about losing face, losing status, and enduring months of relentless, cutting mockery. She was desperate. Then she saw Andrew. He was tall. He was solid. He was wearing a simple, high-quality, comfortable polo shirt, not status but substance. He had an undeniable aura of decent reliability. He was attentive to his son. Lucas was quietly focused, a testament to Andrew's steady parenting. He looked crucially responsible. He was completely out of her world. He had a look of quiet, unshakable competence. He looked like a man who knew how to fix things. She took the biggest, most reckless gamble of her life. She approached the quiet stranger. She asked the unthinkable question. Andrew stood rigid. He heard the sheer desperation in her voice. He saw the genuine raw panic in her wide eyes. His eyes tracked to the group of perfectly tailored people rounding the corner, her impending doom. His whole system screamed danger. This was the social chaos he actively avoided. This was the unnecessary high-stakes drama that ruined peaceful afternoons. His trained instinct was simple. Say no. Walk away. Protect Lucas from this mess. He knew the cost of entanglement. He did not answer immediately. He couldn't. He paused, watching the seconds tick by, feeling the internal conflict between his desire for peace and his innate human decency. Lucas continued to look up, waiting for his father's decision, trusting his judgment completely. Andrew slowly knelt down, bringing his face level with Lucas's. He spoke quietly, his gaze steady and serious. He did not act without consulting his son. He never had. Andrew understood that involving Lucas in this situation required his full informed consent. "Lucas," he said, his voice low enough to be private, "this woman, Emily, is in trouble. She needs help immediately. She needs a friendly face for an hour. Are you okay with this? Are you okay being a part of this unexpected mission?" Lucas, the observant 8-year-old, processed the situation with surprising maturity. He studied Emily's frantic, anxious face. He saw the genuine distress. He saw the approaching storm of well-dressed strangers. He looked back at his father. He saw the calm, solid expression he knew so well. He understood his father's code. Help is always offered when genuinely needed. He nodded decisively. "Yes, Dad, we can help. What's the plan?" Andrew smiled briefly, a warm, genuine flash of approval. "The plan is to be ourselves. Nothing more." He stood up. He turned back to Emily. She was trembling slightly, holding her breath, waiting for the definitive rejection. The approaching group was now within 20 feet. Andrew spoke slowly, deliberately, giving each word weight. His voice was steady, projecting calm authority. "I can help, Emily. Lucas and I can be your support system for this event. We will attend the lunch with you. But I have one condition. I won't lie. I refuse to construct a fake history. I will be honest about who I am. I will be honest about Lucas. We will simply be present and we will be polite. But we will not perform." Emily was stunned into silence. The immediate massive relief of his acceptance was overwhelming. She felt the tension drain from her shoulders. But his condition, no lies, only presence, was unexpected, and far more terrifying than a fake backstory. She had prepared a flawless, complex cover story, Julian, the VC. She had names, dates, fake careers, and an invented history of meeting him at a charity gala. Now the plan was simple and brutally exposed. "Just be there?" she whispered, the panic rising again. "No backstory? No perfect job title? Just you, the HVAC technician, and Lucas?" "Yes," Andrew confirmed, his eyes steady. "That's all. I will be your date. But I am not going to be anyone else. If your family judges the truth, that is their failing, not yours. I will protect you from their aggression, but not from the truth." Emily swallowed hard. The risk was monumental. The public relations executive in her screamed for control. But the terrified human in her recognized the lifeline. She nodded. "Deal. Just keep me company. And please, please don't let them tear me apart." The three of them, Andrew, the quiet technician, Lucas, the serious co-conspirator, and Emily, the terrified executive, walked toward the approaching family storm. Andrew placed his hand lightly on the small of Emily's back, a simple gesture of non-possessive support. The room, a formal, private dining space just off the main atrium, was filled with Emily's relatives. They were wealthy, impeccably dressed, and instantly critical. The initial inspection began immediately. Her aunt, a retired judge, raised an eyebrow at Andrew's simple but clean polo shirt, a silent condemnation of his lack of a suit. Her uncle, a self-made real estate mogul, asked about Andrew's investment portfolio. The scrutiny was intense. Andrew didn't falter. He simply answered that he was an independent repair technician. He spoke plainly about his work and his commitment to quality service. He didn't try to sound glamorous or elevate his profession. He was just decent. The family's questions became more probing. They were laced with subtle judgment and disbelief. They asked about his house, his car, and his previous career. They were looking for the flaw, the reason he wasn't good enough for the ambitious Emily Carter. They were searching for the chink in the armor. But Andrew had no armor. He had only integrity. Andrew did not try to play the perfect boyfriend role. He only played Andrew Miller, a respectful man who took care of his son and his community. He kept his arm gently placed on the back of Emily's chair, a subtle, supportive boundary, not a sign of ownership. Lucas was impeccably polite. He answered questions about school with clear, honest excitement. There were no fabricated career histories, no invented romantic timelines. There was only the uncomfortable, profound truth of Andrew's presence, a presence that was kind, quiet, and absolutely real. The family couldn't find a single lie to attack, and that in itself was unsettling to them. The family lunch proceeded, slowly morphing from a brutal inquisition into an awkward social event. Emily's relatives, finding no glaring inconsistencies in Andrew's simple, direct story, slowly began to soften. They had expected flash and pretense. They had expected an obvious liar who they could expose. They found quiet confidence instead. They couldn't dissect a man who didn't care about their shallow opinion. Their sophisticated weapons were useless against his simple shield of honesty. Lucas was the unexpected wild card. He was the anchor of genuine connection. He was immune to the social posturing. When asked what he loved about the mall, he didn't mention video games or clothes. He talked passionately about a miniature wind turbine he had seen on a rooftop and how his dad had explained the complex internal gearbox and the importance of rotational balance. Lucas's genuine technical enthusiasm disarmed the room. He spoke with the clear confidence of a boy who was truly seen and listened to by his father. The atmosphere, initially arctic, became merely cool. Emily watched Andrew interact with his son. She saw the patience, the respect, and the quiet pride. She realized this was a level of emotional depth she never experienced with her polished, self-obsessed professional dates. Andrew wasn't performing for the family. He was simply being a good father. This simple observation captivated her. Then the critical question arrived, delivered by Emily's older, corporate-minded cousin, Marcus. He was a man who planned his life 5 years in advance. He saw life as a spreadsheet of metrics and projections. "So, Andrew," Marcus said, leaning forward with a predatory smile, "a man like you, with a clearly defined schedule, must have long-term plans for Emily? We are a family that values structure. What is your 5-year trajectory here? Will you be able to provide the financial stability she is accustomed to?" Emily tensed instantly. Her face went white. She knew the correct corporate answer: marriage, houses, investments. But it was all a lie. She opened her mouth to speak, ready to invent a compromise. But Andrew spoke first. He addressed Marcus calmly, directly, and without apology. He met the question of ambition with the principle of integrity. "Marcus," Andrew said, his voice measured, "I can't speak to 5-year trajectories. In my life, I focus on what I can reliably guarantee. My guarantee is quality work and reliable presence. That's what I'm selling. We're taking things one honest step at a time. The most important plan is the next honest step we take together. And regarding financial stability, I guarantee my income is stable. My work is essential, not speculative. That foundation is far more stable than the next market craze." It wasn't a corporate answer, but it was a solid, undeniable statement of principle. He defended their non-existent relationship by defending his own non-negotiable integrity. The room quieted, slightly confused by his directness. Andrew had successfully deflected the attack by substituting a moral metric for a financial one. But the biggest attack was still coming. Emily's judgmental Aunt Carol, an investor who only spoke in terms of asset risk and liability, delivered the real poison. She looked dismissively at Lucas, who was quietly drinking a lemonade and sketching in his notebook under the table. She targeted the most vulnerable point: the child. "Honestly, Emily," she sniffed, loud enough for the whole table to hear, "a single dad is a lot of baggage. He comes with a lot of emotional debt and complications. Is this really worth the exposure? It sounds like a severe liability to your career timeline. The entire table went silent. Emily felt the humiliation return, magnified tenfold. The moment was crushing. Andrew, sitting absolutely still, took the hit in silence, absorbing the judgment aimed at his son. Lucas, sensing the attack, reached across the table and firmly gripped his father's hand. He held tight. It was a silent, powerful show of solidarity. Andrew waited a long, intentional beat. His voice, when he finally spoke, was low, measured, and devastatingly calm. He looked directly at Aunt Carol. He made sure every word landed. "It's not baggage, Carol," Andrew stated firmly. "It's responsibility. It's a measure of my capacity to commit. Anyone who views a child as debt doesn't understand what it takes to build anything of lasting value. I built my son. I take responsibility for him every single day. That commitment is a foundational strength, and that capacity for honest, relentless responsibility, I can assure you, is the best asset I bring to any relationship or endeavor." The room fell into profound silence. Andrew's defense was not aggressive, it was merely true. Aunt Carol actually flushed, completely neutralized by the unexpected dignity of his response. She had been publicly shamed, not by an insult, but by a statement of fact regarding integrity. Emily looked at Andrew, not with simple gratitude for his assistance, but with a deep, dawning respect that bordered on awe. She had never seen anyone defend their integrity so fiercely, so simply, and so publicly. In that moment, the act of pretending ended for her. She saw the true, undeniable strength of the man sitting beside her, a strength that was completely independent of money or status. She realized she wanted to be on his side of the argument, the side of quiet, honest dignity. Just as the atmosphere began to thaw, the family members reluctantly shifting to safer topics like vacation homes, a new highly polished threat emerged. A sleek, perfectly styled woman, Chloe, approached the table. She was a former colleague of Emily's, infamous for her sharp tongue and relentless desire to win. Chloe immediately recognized the uncomfortable tension and the high-value opportunity for sabotage. She saw Emily was desperate, and she saw a man who didn't belong. Chloe didn't hesitate. She zeroed in on Emily with a vicious, controlled smile. "Emily, didn't expect to see you here. And with him." Chloe's eyes raked over Andrew's simple attire, dismissing him entirely. "Didn't you once say you were going to hire an actor from that agency for this dreadful family lunch? Something about securing a temporary visual asset to impress Aunt Carol?" Chloe laughed, the sound loud and brittle, designed to expose and destroy. She delivered the final fatal blow. "So is this your expensive stand-in? The temporary asset?" The entire dining room exploded into noise. Whispers flew around the table like shrapnel. "Hired? An actor? She lied to us? A common repairman? This is a total fabrication." Emily's carefully constructed professional life, the relentless drive for perfection, was publicly negated in seconds. Her face was chalk white. The exposure was catastrophic. The tears welled up instantly, but she couldn't move. She couldn't defend herself against the truth. Her professional image was crumbling into dust. She felt the full, horrifying weight of the judgment she had tried so hard to escape. Her carefully curated life had failed. Andrew acted instantly. He stood up again, slowly but definitively. He placed his hand on Emily's shoulder, a solid, grounding weight that transferred his calm to her trembling body. For Emily, that simple touch was a revelation. It wasn't romantic, it was protective. In a room full of people who valued performance, Andrew was defending her vulnerability. He was defending the scared woman who asked for help, not the powerful executive who failed to execute a plan. This was the first time in years she felt defended for being real, not for being successful. He looked at Chloe, his eyes showing profound disappointment, not anger. Then he looked at the stunned, judgmental faces of Emily's family. He didn't deny the premise of the request. He shifted the focus instantly. "Chloe," Andrew said, his voice quiet but commanding, overriding the noise in the room. You are fundamentally wrong. She didn't hire me. She asked for help. There is a huge difference. She was scared, and she asked a stranger for kindness, not a transaction, and Lucas and I chose to give it. He paused, holding the gaze of the room, forcing them to confront the core issue of their own cruelty. Emily's mistake wasn't asking for help, Andrew continued, his voice ringing with honest conviction. Her mistake was believing that being judged for her relationship status was normal or acceptable. Her mistake was thinking she needed a disguise to be accepted by her own family. He looked directly at Aunt Carol and Marcus. She was trying to live up to your impossible expectations. Andrew's words cut through the hypocrisy of the room. And let me be perfectly clear, I am an HVAC technician. I make an honest, reliable living. I am not an actor. I am a father. And helping someone in crisis isn't shameful or transactional. It is simply being human. You can judge her for her desperation, or you can admire her courage for asking a stranger to intervene. Chloe sputtered, attempting a final weak retort about professional standards, but the wind had entirely left her sails. Andrew's quiet authority was too absolute. His moral victory was undeniable. With a disgusted eye roll, she turned and strode quickly out of the dining room, knowing she had failed to land the killing blow she intended. The room was silenced once more. Andrew's defense wasn't romantic. It was purely moral. He wasn't defending her deception. He was defending her basic human need for support. Lucas stood beside his father, his small hand still holding Andrew's trousers, a silent, powerful testament to the man's integrity. The boy looked at the judgmental faces without fear. Emily finally broke. The tears streamed down her face. These were different tears. Tears of humiliation, yes, but also of profound relief and gratitude. Andrew had chosen the truth over the role. He had exposed the family's cruelty. In doing so, he had saved her soul, not just her appearance. He had given her dignity back by accepting her vulnerability. The lunch ended abruptly. The family, exposed and unable to counter Andrew's moral authority, dispersed in awkward, hushed silence. They had won the battle of professional image, but lost the war of character. Emily was left standing by the entrance, feeling physically ill, still shaking from the adrenaline dump. She turned to Andrew and Lucas. Her voice was raw with apology. Andrew, Lucas, I am so sorry. That was terrible. That was chaos. I should never have pulled you into my drama. I am so grateful. But I understand if you need to go immediately. She thought he would be angry. She expected him to leave, grateful to escape the wreckage of her life. She assumed he would retreat back to his simple, orderly existence. Andrew shook his head gently. He smiled faintly, a tired but genuine expression. No need to apologize, Emily. We did fine. The mission was successful. You survived, and no one was lied to about anything that mattered. We were honest about who we are. And that is a win. Lucas, looking up, gave Emily a genuine, wide, sweet smile. It was an adventure, like Dad's old engineering jobs, but with more shouting and less math. Emily laughed, a short, shaky sound that quickly turned into a soft, relieved sob. She regained her composure. She knew she couldn't return to her lonely apartment, haunted by the chaos of the last 3 hours. She looked at Andrew, at the man who had faced down an army of social judgment for her. She knew this was the real question. The first one was transactional. This one was everything. It carried the weight of her future. Andrew, she asked quietly. Her eyes were clear now, stripped of the pretense of her professional life. The acting is over. The role is finished. The family is gone. But I was wondering, would you and Lucas stay for coffee? Just the three of us? No pretense, no family, just talking. I want to know about the vintage radio equipment. I want to know about the wind turbine. Andrew didn't answer right away. He looked down at Lucas, consulting his co-pilot one last time. He checked for his son's energy, his interest, his true feeling. Lucas nodded immediately, his eyes shining with open curiosity and enthusiasm. Please, Dad? I want to tell Emily about the supercapacitor I'm building. Andrew looked back at Emily. His quiet acceptance was the most honest compliment he could have given her. He was choosing her, not out of obligation, but out of genuine interest. Yes, Emily, he said, his voice soft. "We would be happy to stay for coffee, but only if we can discuss the optimal wiring for a 1940s-era shortwave radio." They started the slow walk back to the coffee kiosk, and the silence between them was completely different now. It wasn't the silence of awkward pretense. It was the comfortable, expectant silence of potential. As they moved through the crowd, Emily felt a strange relief. For the first time all day, she was simply walking, not performing. She realized Andrew hadn't just saved her from her family. He had freed her from her own need to deceive. They settled back into the same high seats, the very spots where the desperate plea had begun hours earlier. Andrew bought them a second round of drinks. This coffee felt sacred. The first time, she had been running from a fire. Now she was deliberately seeking shelter. "I need to confess something," Emily said, stirring her latte slowly. "When you said you wouldn't lie, I almost pulled the plug. I thought the truth would destroy me faster than the lie. My entire life is a performance, Andrew. I package things up and sell them. But you refuse to be packaged." Andrew looked at her, his expression warm and empathetic. "The things that are built to last," he said gently, "don't need fancy packaging. They just need good materials and a solid design. Your vulnerability is a better foundation than any lie." Firm, he told Emily about his passion for restoring vintage radio equipment. Emily told him about the quiet relief she felt after shedding her professional perfection. There was no more pretense. Only two people and one insightful little boy, starting a genuine connection that began with a lie, but was cemented by the truth. The single dad's quiet reply had not just changed a moment. It had changed her life's entire trajectory by teaching her the value of honest responsibility over superficial status. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, leave a comment and subscribe. Sometimes honesty is the bravest romance.